Let me begin this morning by saying that it seems I might have drawn the short end of the lectionary stick, as it were, today. If you're left scratching your head and wondering what it was that Jim read to us, what is that gospel reading about? If you're wondering that, you are not alone, friends. Commentators generally agree that this is among the hardest, or maybe even the single hardest parable of Jesus to understand and interpret. It's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle or the Sargasso Sea for a preacher. Once you dive into this text to try to make meaning of it, you may not reemerge. Now, I'm sure you know this, but our Episcopal tradition, along with most other mainline churches like Lutherans and Presbyterians, as well as the Roman Catholics, generally follow what is called the Revised Common Lectionary. So what that means is that we have a set of readings every week that are assigned to us. We don't choose them, they choose us. And so that keeps a preacher like me honest, I think, because you come across a reading like this parable and you say, let's just turn a few pages and find something that's a little easier, but we don't get to do that. So we'll see how we go this morning. There is a British comedian who says, if at first you don't succeed, failure may be your style. And so we'll find out if indeed failure is my style this morning. Today we have a story from Jesus that's often called the parable of the unjust steward. The hero of this parable is a crafty, small-time crook. He gets fired by his manager for mismanagement, and so he runs to those master's creditors and says, hey, you, just kind of cut down your bill a little bit in order to ingratiate himself to them. So he certainly proves himself resourceful when he's in a crisis. But I really like this. One commentator says, what we have here is a picture of laziness organizing itself under crisis. And if that doesn't sound like every teenager or every adult or every you that you have ever known, a picture of laziness organizing itself under a crisis, then I don't know what does. So this steward, he kind of couldn't quite get it together to keep his job. But when that temperature got turned up, then he could figure out how to make that one move available to him to wiggle off the hook. And that's fine. We're not really confused yet, except for now, when we get to the end, and he receives all this praise. The master for whom he used to work, rather than losing his whole mind about all of this debt that was forgiven without his input, he commends the steward for his shrewdness, the text says. And then Jesus seems to jump on this praise bandwagon too, saying, make for yourselves friends by means of dishonest wealth. So what is this about? Why is it in Luke's gospel? I think a couple of things, really two things are key. First, this is a little bit of a Robin Hood or a Brer Rabbit story. This is Luke's gospel, and when it starts with, there was a rich man, our ears are supposed to perk up to that phrase. Rich is not a neutral word for Luke, but it's like a fighting word for him. All across Luke's gospel, we see rich people for whom the disposition of their heart is not generosity, it's not joy, but it's greed and accumulation at the expense of other people. Think through, remember the Pharisees who were lovers of money, the rich man who ignored Lazarus at his gate, Zacchaeus, until he went up that sycamore tree and met Jesus. Zacchaeus was a rich man who used his friends to make money. Stay with me here, though. Try not to get your defenses or your heckles up about this. Being rich isn't so much the issue for Luke as it is being called rich. Being called rich. How are those things different? For Luke, being called rich is our clue that this is a person for whom riches are the center of their identity. It's like a core matter for them. It's what they're all about. So as a result, they find themselves spiritually numb. Because this is a Robin Hood story, we're supposed to be on the beginning saying, oh, I don't like this rich guy. I'm going to get on board with this other guy, even though he's sort of a rascal, sort of a scoundrel. The second thing I think this parable is about money. Not about whether money is good or bad, but about calling it what it is. Many of you know that in my life outside of this life, I am an accounting professor, and so I guess it was good for me to draw this. There's even the phrase in there, in the text, give me an accounting of your management. So here we are. It is interesting, I think, to see that Jesus uses this parable not to tell people to avoid money. If you look at it carefully, it doesn't say, avoid money, run away from it. But rather, Jesus frames it in light of what God's kingdom is. This thing, money, which feels so permanent and so powerful to us. From a kingdom perspective, it's kind of like bonds being issued by a dying regime. It is temporary currency of a doomed sovereignty, and it is bound to fail in the end. You've all heard the phrase, you can't take it with you when you die. Someone after 8 o'clock walked out and said, is that really true? You can't take it with you when you die? And I said, it's really true. And he said, well, no one told me that when I signed up for this game. So let me tell you, it's really true. We don't get to take it with us when we die. So the truly shrewd thing to do, that's what this person was praised for, right? Shrewdness. The truly shrewd thing to do is to use this thing that feels so powerful to invest in something that lasts. Not investing in the world that minted it, but investing in something that will last, because that is part of the life of God. So maybe we can use money of this unrighteous age to make kingdom friendships. We are about to enter the season of stewardship, and this isn't meant to be a stewardship sermon, but what I think we have in this story is stewardship can feel like a tired concept. We have sort of a fresh injection of something that's new, that's different, maybe a bit more radical. I don't think what we have here is asceticism, which says, I'm going to renounce all of my worldly possessions and go live in a cardboard box. I don't think that's what we have here. And I, Jordan, am not telling you that that's what you should go and do. And I'm not telling you that that's what the text says. I think that what you should do is save what is reasonable, perhaps for your old age or for the sake of the good of your children. But so much turns on that word reasonable, doesn't it? I tell my students all the time, our ability to deceive ourselves is almost unlimited. And it is true. Our ability to deceive ourselves is almost unlimited. And so figuring out what that word reasonable means, that's the work for you and for me. And I think I sort of wish that I could do some theological maneuvering to get us all off the hook of having to do that work. But I just can't. I can't do it because it's just true. It's true for me and it's true for you. So this isn't asceticism. This is not, I'm going to go live in a cardboard box. It's also not measly charity, which says, I'm going to give away this much and I'm going to keep this much. It's not that either, but there's this urgency about money. Money in the kingdom is like uranium with a short half-life. How do we use whatever money we have for good while we can? Because as it turns out, we don't have all the time in the world. Again, we can deceive ourselves in an almost unlimited way and believe we have all the time in the world, and we don't. So our job then, when we leave this place, is to work in this world which is broken, to advance God's realm and God's reign. And so may we, both of us, go now with haste to do all the good we can, with all the money that we have, with all the time given to us. And may we do it now with some urgency, as though it is the most important thing in the world. because, well, because it is. Amen.